Hi, Grandma from Grandma's Footsteps. Today I'm going to show you how to make this quick and easy sunset. Um, it's it's beautiful. Now, I've already prepared my 100% wool felt. I've cut it just slightly larger than the picture I intend to make, which is A5, and I've drawn on the size of the finished picture so that we know where the edges are before we start to add any fibres. Now, I've been working again with the mixed fibres, and some of them are roving and some of them are bats, carded bats. Doesn't really make that much difference in this case, because we're doing most of the needle felting across the felt. So as long as they lay nice and flat and you've got some good colours, that is fantastic. As you can see, I've got some yellow, some sort of reddy orange, green. The pale blue there is lovely because it's got some sparkle in it. And I showed you a small piece of mixed green there, which I shall probably use for trees, or a tree, whatever. So I didn't quite need all of the width of that particular bat there, so I've separated it out, and now I'm spreading it out and putting it. So I'm also making sure that the bottom of it is not dead straight. We don't want straight lines in the sky, but I'm just smoothing it out, putting it where I want to put it. And I'm moving it over to the right hand side so that we've got the maximum amount of spare when we cut it off. So there we go, that's the start of our sky, and now I should be adding, there we are, and we're adding the reddy orange colour, which also has some yellow in it, so that they fit very well together. I'm just pulling it apart to get it to about the right length, and I'm pulling some of the reddy orange colours up over the yellow. Now I'm doing this so that it mixes better in the sky and you don't get sort of dead straight lines where you go between the two colours. Now I'm pulling a little bit of the yellow off so that I can push it down into the red again to make that sort of change between the yellow and the red as smooth as possible, and to really mix the colours in, and it makes it look a lot more natural. So just carrying on now till just put those few bits in. We can always add some more later on, and later on I actually put some red into the yellow as well, so finessing the sky. So and now the green. Okay, so we've got a nice mixed green here. I'm just going to lay it on sort of straight away. Now this is one that doesn't have to go on dead straight. You can get a slight angle on it, or in the case of this one I'm pulling a lump up at the top there because that makes it more like a hill, and yeah, it just makes the landscape look a little bit more interesting. You don't necessarily need your horizon to be straight across because it isn't. You've got hills and bumps and lumps and trees and all sorts. So there we go. Now I apologise, the video does go out of focus a little bit here and there, but there you go, it happens. And now for our very beautiful lake. I love this particular blend of wool with the little bits of sparkle in there. It's absolutely perfect for water. I've spread the colours out a little bit further than I was originally showing you, so I'm not going to have room to put the dark blue right at the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take some of the dark blue and add it into the water here and there just to give a little bit more interest. Now also you notice I'm putting the dark blue over to the right hand side because I showed you there that's where the sun is going to be, so that's where our light is coming from, so the that side of the lake would be a bit darker, with a bit less light. So I hope that makes sense. So we're just putting these last few bits in here now, and yeah, smoothing it all down and getting ready to needle felt. So make sure you haven't got any gaps, and here we go. So I'm just starting to needle felt now, and I'm using my double needle, which is basically two needles held together with elastic bands, to attach the edges. I think it's important to get a nice firm edge so that your wool doesn't move too much. And now I'm using the 6 needle and just giving it a good going over, just to make sure that all the fibres are attached to the felt and that they're not going to go anywhere. That's great. There we go. And again, a little bit of concentration on the edges, but I've gone back to my double needle now. The 6 needles are absolutely brilliant for giving a large area, attaching it down, but I find that it does make some quite large holes, so needle holes, and I don't like that so much, so I tend to take a little bit longer and use a smaller needles. Now I'm trimming this off. This is something you don't have to do at this point, but personally I prefer to work without all those bits sticking out the edge if I possibly can. And also you'll see here that some of the bits that I've cut off I'm using to fill in some gaps in the sky here where the felt was showing through. So that's another useful thing you can do with it. Just getting everything to sort of lay down nice and flat. I keep smoothing it out. It is so soft. It's incredible. I just love to feel it like that as well. So here we go. We're getting it all down now. And I'm going to put now I'm putting in a little bit more of this green here and making the hill stand out just a little bit more. So another hill here, over to the right, slightly lower down, which gives the lovely sort of depth to your picture. There we are, lovely. And now I'm adding some sort of trees, bushes along the bottom of that hill there. I'm using a darker green and just pushing it up into sort of shapes that look like they could be bushes or hedges, trees, or small lumps in the ground. And here I'm putting a small piece of green between the two hills there, just to make sure that it's so it just looks like two separate hills, which is good. A little bit of a bush there on the top of the hill. It makes a nice skyline when you actually add things up into the sky. And there we have a still for you to have a look at, and a close-up of how the hills now look. I decided that I wanted to bring the pasture land down into the lake a little bit. I didn't like that dead straight line across there, so I'm just adding a little bit of the same green down here to make a curve, and later on I will change the shape slightly there where it joins, because I don't like the sort of right angle which it appears to be there. So that's what I'm doing here. And always, whilst we're adding bits, if you see anything that's sort of sticking up or something you want to change ever so slightly, then go ahead and do it. I'm just adding a little bit more of the dark green in here under the bushes, and to look, a bit more like a hedge perhaps. Yeah. So here I am changing that angle there. It did look a bit like a right angle and I wasn't very happy with it at all. So I'm just changing that to give a much smoother edge, to the lake. Now I'm going to add what I call the bank. This is the bit underneath the grass there, so that it's the bit of mud really that goes from the grass down into the water. It just makes it stand out, and yeah, more natural. So that's all I'm doing, is adding a bit of the mixed brown in there, and I think you can see that that actually makes it look quite a bit better just there. And then I shall play with the greens so that we've got bits of grass that actually hang down over the edge of the bank there. It's very rare that you would get the grass just straight along the edge, unless it's like a golf course where it's mown and really smooth. So this is a meadow. It's not going to be smooth. You're going to have long and short grass in it. So I want to bring some down over the edge there, just to make it look more natural and more realistic as to what it would be like in the flesh, as it were. So I'll just carry on with that. And a still of the picture as we've got it so far, and you can see the bank there. And now I'm just going to spend a little time finessing the sky. We're adding a little bit of red into the yellow because I thought the yellow was a bit too stark. And I think you'll agree that makes the sky look much more natural and nice. Adding a few little bushes and things to the left hand side here under the other tree. And you notice I've put it a little bit higher, which gives the impression that it's further back, giving depth to the picture again. And now I'm adding what I call the halo for the sun as it's setting. It's the last rays that go out from the sun in 360 degrees basically. So I'm just adding this sort of halo here to make this part of the sky just a little bit brighter, because that's where the actual sun is going down. And here we make the sun. I just take a piece, roll it round in my hand to make it approximately round, and just needle felt it on there between the two hills. A few more rays. And now you'll see I'm adding a little bit of red to the right hand side of the sky. I didn't like this, and later on I removed it. So there you go. That's what happens. You can change things. You can remove the fibres once you've needle felted them in. But I usually needle felt things fairly lightly until I've had a chance to have a look at it properly to see whether or not I really like it. And here I'm just adding a little white to the left hand side of the sun there. I have already removed the red that I put on the right. It just didn't look right. I've done it before and it does sometimes work, but in this case it just did not work. So that's it now. We've got the sun in, and we've got a bit of a halo round it. And I'm going to be adding some white now to the halo, and a little bit more finessing of the sky, where I'm going to be adding some sort of clouds, little bits of white in to lighten up the sky in certain places. I mean, you can add things whenever you like, really. Just one of the things that I advise people to do is to take a photograph of your picture as far as you've got. Have a look at the photograph, because it you can see more from the photograph than you can see when it's sort of sitting in front of you. You can get more of the overall effect, and get an idea of what you need to do, and what you want to do to it at this point. And that's what I do all the time. I take photographs of my work as I go along and look at it and see um, what where I want to go, and if I'm happy with what I've done so far. Still adding some bits of white into the sky here, just making it look like there's a bit of a highlight or a cloud, whatever you think. It it works really well, actually. A little bit of white. It also gives it a bit of a brightness. Yeah. So. And now I'm adding a little bit of white along the edge of the lake here. Um, I, I'm not sure why it works. It just does. It does actually make it look more like water. I think it's just where the water would be lapping against the bank, perhaps. Um, it's something. It's a Bob Ross trick. He did this in all of his paintings that contained water, and it just works. So that's why what we're doing here and why we're doing it. Um, I normally add, and now for some rocks. I just take some of the brown here, roll it in my hands to make an approximate shape, and needle felt it on. It's absolutely fantastic using these mixed fibres for the for rocks, because it just makes rocks. It is so simple. You've got all the different colours in there, so which gives it shading and highlights and such like. So I do the same with the mixed grey as well sometimes. That looks good if you use grey, but I'm using brown rocks this time. It's entirely up to you. You can. It's your picture. Do whatever you want. Um, just adding a few here and there. I'm just adding some up on the bank as well. Um, and yeah, I really enjoy making rocks. I'll be honest. They're just so easy. And now I'm adding a white line around the rocks as well. Again, it just makes it look like it's water, and that the water is just lapping up against the rocks just there. While you watch this, I have an apology to make. For some reason, the next part of the video disappeared. I've no idea what happened to it. It kind of got deleted. So when we move to the next frame, there's going to be some trees suddenly appear. I'm sorry about this. I don't know what happened. But if you want to see how I make the trees, there is a very good part of the first video that shows exactly how I make trees. I'm hoping to do a separate video to show you um, that. And here we are. Tree suddenly appears. Um, but sorry. And there's another tree suddenly appears. I don't know why it decided to just lose that part of the video. But I'm hoping that I very soon will do a video on probably trees and rocks. How to make trees and rocks. And that will hopefully help you out there. Or go and watch my first video and watch me make the tree. So here, I'm actually just adding some darker wool to the right hand side of the tree, because where the sun is, this part of the tree would in fact be in shadow, and it was quite light. Where you use the mixed fibres, sometimes you get a lighter bit or a darker bit, and in this case I got a lighter bit. And I'm moving on now to add some highlights to the trees, the hills, and where the sun rays would catch on the edges of things. And also down here in the meadow, where the sun rays would actually just reflect off the grass there. So continuing on, just to add highlights to places where I think the sun rays would just catch, hills, bushes, tree branches, even later on I will actually do some on the edges of the rock, the top edges of the rocks as well. Just think about the sun. 360 degrees the rays will come out, and it is going to catch and highlight certain elements of your picture. It's not crucial, but it's the sort of thing that just makes a good picture into a great picture. Just these little details. Not all the branches will necessarily catch the light. It's up to you to decide which ones you think would. And some will catch more light than others. And now we're moving to reflections. Reflections and shadows. The sky would reflect into the lake. So basically what you've got to do into the lake is you do the colours from the sky upside down. Obviously you don't want to make your lake completely red and yellow, so just put some fine bits in just to catch the colour so that it looks like a reflection of the sky. That's all you need to do there. So now we're starting to put a bit of the red in. Also, if you overdo the yellow, you'll end up with a green lake. Because obviously the blue and the yellow will mix, and you just end up with a green lake. So you want it to break up. Remember that it's water. Water moves, and all the reflections and such like will break up. They won't just be solid. So you need to create that effect if at all possible. And now I'm starting on the shadows for this tree. this tree will have quite a shadow. It's fairly, the sun is behind it, and so it's going to have a fairly good shadow. Again, you want to do it similar to how you do the reflections. You want it to break up a bit because the ground that the shadow is on, it's not a pavement. It's a meadow, so it's going to be bumpy, so that the shadow won't be solid. Um, Different parts of the meadow at different heights will show the shadow differently. So that's it. Shadows are something else that just help to turn a good picture into a great picture. You don't necessarily miss them, but if they're not there, something doesn't look quite right. Now I'm doing the reflection for the small tree. I'm using the same wool. I'm making it thinner, and I'm not actually putting all the detail in. You can do, but it's not necessary, I don't think, always. Unless you've got detailitis, you don't need to do it. But there you go, that shows basically the tree. But I'm adding now some of the yellow, the highlighted colours across the top of the reflection. That helps to break it up and make it look more like a reflection and less like an upside down tree. I'm now adding some shadows to the rocks, so that, not shadows, sorry, reflections to the rocks, so that they are also reflected with very strong light from this sun setting. I think you would get a lot of reflections in the water, and that's what we're trying to show here. So I'm also adding just a little bit of the yellow to the top of the rocks, which I said we were going to do. And I've put in the reflection for the large tree, and again over the top with some of the colours, maybe even a bit of the blue from the lake itself. Now I'm going to do just a sort of a reflection from the sun itself down onto the lake here, just to give it that sort of bit of a highlight. Just bring out the colours. It makes it look good. And there we have a close-up of the shadows and the reflections. And now we're going to add some grass. So I've got a different bit of roving here with a mixed colour. It's got all sorts of colours in this one. And I'm just pulling it off. I did cut the bottom straight because I'm putting it across at the bottom of the tree there. It kind of, you've got the shape of the tree, but it hides the sort of roots a little bit, and you often get tall grass growing around the bottoms of trees. So that's why we're doing that there. Just attach it at the bottom and then pull it out. If you're gonna cut it at an angle. Don't just cut it straight across. As I said, again, it's not a golf course. Nobody's mown this grass. It's a meadow. So there we go, a little bit more. And it's got various different colours in that. And then I just use the needle to tease it up till it looks, well, just like grass, basically. If it's too long, you can always chop a bit off like that, and there. So now you can see where I've put the grass in, and I'm quite happy with that. Yep, I think we've got a finished picture. It looks good.